let's proceed to the second segment of our UnPanel. So here we have 3 more speakers with you, and towards the end of that segment, we will have another Q&A session. We'll keep it a little brief this time. So let me introduce the next 3 speakers to you very, very quickly. The fourth talk that we have is Mihir Samson, covering love in the time of online harms and policing. Mihir practices law in New Delhi and has been part of significant cases relating to the rights of LGBTQIA+ persons, including Section 377 and the recognition of the rights of transgender persons. After that, we have Smriti Parshira speaking on leisure, loitering, and urban surveillance. Smriti is a lawyer and tech and society researcher who's currently working on a research project with the Interledger Foundation, which focuses on studying digital financial access in Himachal Pradesh. And third, and to conclude the evening, we have Dr. Anand Teltumde joining us remotely to talk about dissent and privacy. Anand is the former CEO of Petronet, General Secretary of the Committee of Protection of Democratic Rights, education rights activist, and presidium member of All India Forum for Rights to Education. And he's also the scholar and author of over 30 books. So with that, can I please invite the next 2 participants on the dais? Anand has joined us remotely, and I would request Mihir to take the stage.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. I am very happy to be here to celebrate the Puttaswamy judgment, which came in August 2017. For us in the queer community, it was really a source of hope because it came at a time when 377 had been reinstated in 2013. The situation on the ground was very dire. Excuse me. And basically, violence was rampant, blackmail was rampant, sexual assault was rampant. Thank you. And really, this privacy judgment was a death knell to 377 because it said that the reasoning in Kaushal was wrong. So we knew then that it was a matter of time till the shadow of criminality was lifted off us. Since we've been talking about Aadhaar, I must say that for trans people, the lack of uniqueness of Aadhaar has been very useful. Let me put it like that. Because after the Nalsa judgment in 2014, the state started recognizing trans people, but you had to follow the same system of changing your name. So you had to publish it in the newspaper. So you had to tell everybody, identify as a trans person, this is my chosen name, this is my chosen gender, and then you could change all your IDs. 2019, they've now passed a law where you approach the district magistrate. You have to apply online through a single portal. Forget any digital safety. The portal was so badly designed that you could put in an application number and access anybody who had applied for a window of period. That's how bad it was. You could access everybody's personal information, including their gender identity. But because the system is so cumbersome, basically people are going to an Aadhaar center, paying 200 rupees and just saying that gender is recorded by mistake and correcting it. So they're getting the Aadhaar in the correct gender without doing the legal sort of requirements and moving on with their lives and then following up whatever needs to be done. I mean, so that's the loopholes are so many. There's no guarantee that it's accurate, but trans people are using it in a way to move on with their lives and not being forced into the incorrect gender. So I'm here to talk about relationships. I'll talk about the experience of queer and trans people with the law, particularly, but not just in romantic relationships, but also platonic, chosen, familial relationships. Because for us, our relationships are very often causing us to be at odds with our families. So by choosing your own partner, by choosing a partner your family doesn't approve of, you are then on the outs of your family. So far from being a sort of private thing between two people or however many people one would choose, there is the state involved in the relationship through the police, and there is the family involved in the relationship through their disapproval. And so often what we have to do as lawyers is to be at the police station to ensure judgments like the Puttaswamy judgment and the following Navtej judgment, etc., are followed. Because if we're not there, basically what the father's saying becomes the law, what the Supreme Court has said, what the Constitution said, is completely ignored. So that's really what we're trying to do, is to make sure that the law is followed at the police station, and people who are in relationships are able to be so without the threat of criminal action. So I just want to say that, it's only been 6 years since 2018, since 377 was finally put to rest, insofar that it applied to consensual acts between adults. But really, on the ground, the situation has changed. It's almost unrecognizable in terms of people's expressions and ability to connect with other people. And so, for people in places where there's no discussion about sexual orientation, about being trans, about being queer, the phone is really something which allows you to access information, communities, services. It's quite literally aligned to your freedom. Apart from that, it also allows you to express yourself in your correct gender. So you might be in a situation where your family won't let you cut your hair. They won't let you dress the way you want to. They won't let you meet anybody. Your ability to express yourself is so heavily restricted, particularly for queer women and trans men, that the only way you can kind of lift any dysphoria, that's discomfort with your sex assigned at birth, is to express yourself online. So really, you can not only be yourself, but also find your community online. And we're seeing it play out in very interesting ways. So just recently, we had a case where a trans woman had been confined by her parents. She tried to go to the police station. The police station alerted her father that she had left. She got assaulted at the police station and then sent back to her father's house. Her father then put her in a de-addiction center to sort of say that there's something wrong with her, etc., so that she wouldn't be a nuisance in the area. Now, she didn't have any friends in her college because she was being bullied for her gender expression, but she happened to be very active on Discord and actually had a network of very, very close friends who she had not met, but were willing to come to her rescue. So they were willing to act as petitioners in the court, come and interact with the judges, seek that she be produced and released from the family. So for queer and trans people, it's not just, your sexual and romantic relationships, but also your chosen family. It could be accessed and created through online spaces and networks. At the same time, of course, the phone can be used to track you. So say you are leaving your house because you know that if you come out or your partner is found out, your call location, your phone location can be used to track you very easily, because basically what happens, and it seems to be a pattern now everywhere, is that the family goes and says you're missing. You might have left a letter, you might have even left a letter in the police station. Everybody knows you might have left on your own voluntarily or an adult, but you are deemed to be missing when your parents go and report you. That then activates the entire criminal process. So the police must, in their minds, find you, ask you whether you've left or not, and unless there's somebody else present there to ensure that the law is followed, they will take you back to your hometown, the police station where the complaint is registered, and then very often threaten you and send you back. So for us, we have to constantly negotiate with people about their phones, about leaving the SIM cards, getting off at different stations, so that they are able to get to a place where there is safety. And so, for example, in some shelter homes in Delhi, they ask you to leave your phone at the reception. But it's so tough for a queer person who's used that device to get out to freedom to give up the custody of their phone to anybody. But at the same time, there are now more services in bigger cities. So there is a sort of movement from places where people are being persecuted in smaller places, in smaller towns, to bigger cities. And there are sort of more services in terms of lawyers, shelter homes. There's a set of shelter homes started by the government for trans people, but of course there's a big issue in terms of funding and support from the government. Now, in terms of online dating, I think the apps specifically catering to online dating, many of you must have used them. There's this kind of promise of freedom, like romantic and sexual freedom. The apps allow you to interact with people of same interests, sexual orientation. A lot of the awkward initial is another person queer? Do they have interest in women, etc. is all sort of assumed if you're on a platform which is common. But at the same time, there are a lot of risks. So, of course, some of it is common to however you would access physical spaces or online spaces. But a lot of it is also built into the architecture of the apps. So Grindr, for example, you can see the person's distance from you. So if Shefali was on Grindr, she'd be like 0 meters away from me. There are other apps where you publicly broadcast yourself. There are apps where you can bond over kinks, right? So those all throw up unique challenges, particularly when something goes wrong. And a lot does go wrong. So when you start to move from the online to the offline, the question really is, how much is somebody protected, able to protect themselves? How vulnerable would they be? And what we see in Delhi, for example, there are lots of young students, there are lots of people from different parts of the country, and they may or may not know how unsafe it could be. So there is a targeting of people. So we have criminal gangs active on these apps, and particularly they use the information we share to bond with people to target you. And so that could be whether you're out or not, whether you're married to somebody and you are meeting people quietly. And all of that is then used to, can range from something like, extortion and robbery, but it has extended to much more serious cases of sexual assault, gang rape, etc. And then the question is of how much do the apps help? Because if you block the person, all your chat history is gone. And so then the police is always questioning you. Did you really meet, etc.? What were you doing on the apps? And that kind of thing. And, if it's questions of kink and sort of freer expressions, you might have discussed all sorts of things to be done with consent. And if they're done without consent, getting the police to acknowledge that as an offense committed is something it's really difficult to do. The other thing that we're seeing constantly is the conversion from a request to the police for assistance into sort of mass surveillance and scrutiny on the community. So, for example, if there has been violence, and it's happened in cases, the police will then use chats that have happened on Grindr, on WhatsApp, on Instagram, etc., to go through the entire chat history and start calling people. So then they might out the persons who've chatted with the person concerned. They have very sort of voyeuristic questioning techniques where they're very interested in what sexual acts have been done. If they found sex toys at a place, they will confront every single person that they have summoned with them, etc. And very often it just becomes a way to use any sort of shame perhaps one might have in terms of what they're doing to get money out of them. So the apps also leave a trail when not wanted, but when we need them to work, they don't often support. So if there's sexual assault, and I have represented people who have been assaulted after meeting people, but Tinder, Telegram, etc., despite summons, despite notices, have not come, not assisted, facilitated with the process, etc. So there is a question in terms of how much this promise of freedom really can come from the apps. I think it's undeniable in terms of how much we are able to deny sort of, their use in our lives, because really for us, meeting people, dating, etc., is really facilitated by it. But at the same time, there's this big question of how do we ensure safety and security? I'll stop here now because my time's up, but I'm happy to take questions afterwards.